Good evening, everyone. My name is Christine Loomis. I'm representing the Nipawin District Chamber of Commerce. Welcome and thank you for your interest in the political or provincial election process. Thank you for the Nipawin Public Library for providing us a space for this event. Amanda Nottingale will be your moderator for tonight's forum. The Nipawin District Chamber is pleased to have NAC TV, who will broadcast our event at a later date. In a moment, Amanda will cover the format for today's forum, and we will hear from some of the candidates for the Agassiz. Here with us tonight in Nipawin are Representative Michelle Badusky, the candidate for Spruce Woods, so representing the Manitoba Liberal Party on behalf of local candidate Richard Davies, the Progressive Conservative Party candidate Jody Byram, Keystone Party candidate Mark Wilson. And regrettably, NDP candidate Danica Wiggins is unable to join us this evening. So as of 7 p.m. tonight, we are unable to have candidates from any other parties join us in time for this evening's event. We encourage you to seek out information from Elections Manitoba for all candidates participating in the election. So tonight's forum is scheduled to continue until 9, and now we welcome Amanda.
All right, thanks a lot, Christine. So each of the candidates will be provided 3 minutes to present their opening comments, and as we draw to a close, each candidate will have 3 minutes to present their closing comments as well. We will have questions pre-submitted to the chamber from NAC TV, the banner, and pre-selected questions from the floor that were submitted prior to the event. All audience questions via either online or in person must be submitted to the chamber host, so that can be to either Jen or Christine in the back, before they are prior to opening the end of all of the comments. For each of the questions that are asked, each of the candidates will have 3 minutes to provide their response. We will rotate in order of responses amongst the candidates for each question as well. So welcome, candidates, and I wish you all the best of luck in tonight's forum and in your campaigns. We are all anxiously waiting to hear from you. So let's get moving on to our opening comments. We have randomly selected prior to the forum starting, and we are going to start with the Liberal representative, Michelle Badusky from the Manitoba Liberal Party, followed by Mark Wilson from the Keystone Party, and then following up with the Progressive Conservative Party candidate, Jody Byram. And then we will go in reverse order for our closing remarks. So please go right ahead, Michelle. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I am super excited to be here. I do want to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 2 territory, the homeland of the Métis Nation. I think it's really important, especially since I'm also here as a guest of the City of Nipawin and the Nipawin Chamber of Commerce, filling in for my colleague Richard Davies, who could not be here. And I was really excited to actually be asked to join you here tonight, because not only does my riding of Spruce Woods kind of align really closely with Agassiz. We have a lot of things in common, but I've also spent a lot of time in both in Nipawin, in Carberry, and through all of the area. I call all of us Westmen, and through my platform, Real Westmen, have worked a lot with local businesses, industry, and my work on the Chamber of Commerce in Rivers, in Riverdale Municipality, has brought us into alignment as well. So I'm really excited to be here. If you were my constituents and I was meeting you on the street, I would introduce myself by saying, hi, I'm Michelle Badusky. I'm the Manitoba Liberal candidate for Spruce Woods. Now that's Manitoba Liberal, not federal liberal. So if you want to complain about Trudeau, we could do that, but I'd rather talk about healthcare. So this is where we're going to be tonight, and I'm super excited and very honored to be joining you.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Michelle. Go ahead, Mark.
So hello, I'm Mark Wilson. I am running as a candidate for the Keystone Party. I am from the Sydney area, where I live with my wife and our 5 young children. So I spent 7 or 8 years working at Circle Square Ranch south of Austin, working with the children at a children's camp there. Since then, I have spent 8 years running my farrier business, just traveling all around southern Manitoba, centralizing in the Agassiz area, and just, getting to know people and meeting people, talking to people. And so that's part of the reason I am running. I've heard from lots of different perspectives and people in different situations and walks of life, and there's a lot of struggling going on in our province and in the Agassiz area. So I am running with the Keystone Party because of the grassroots startup and the values that they represent. And so they are a party that started from the ground up. They are the first party in 30 years to establish itself independently by going around getting signatures from constituents to just show that people in the area are looking for a change, looking for something different. We have set up a revolutionary constitution which puts the power in the hands of the constituents in order to select their representative, in order to vote on the policies for which that representative will fight for and stand for, and just to take the power out of the hands of the leadership within the party and allow the constituents to have that voice. Our principles are enshrined in the Constitution. They are all available on our website to be looked through. And yeah, that Constitution also is implemented in a way that allows for checks and balances to be placed on the leadership and the representatives that are there to work for you. And yeah, that's who I am, and that's who the Keystone Party is. And we just want to make a change in our communities.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark. Jody, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you, and thank you to the Neepawa Chamber for hosting tonight's event, and to our moderator, Amanda Nottingale, and to Michelle, thank you for the land acknowledgement, and of course, fellow candidates and you, the audience, to be here to participate in this. As you know, my name is Jody Byram. I am proud to be the Conservative candidate for the Manitoba Provincial Election on October 3rd. Just to give you a little bit about who I am, I grew up in rural Manitoba. I'm a lifelong resident of Agassiz, and I've worked the last 7 to 8 years in the constituency office. And in that role, I've had the opportunity to learn many different aspects of that role. I have learned what it takes and the time commitment to participate in government and see inside that political scope, I guess, so to speak. I've had the opportunity to learn more about our rural areas, the needs, as well as the people who live here. Through my experience in the office, I've been at the table with school divisions, municipalities, residents, and colony members, and again, like I said, hearing their concerns and issues that they have. I understand the local diversity here. I know the issues that are impacting businesses, organizations, as well as families. And I want to continue to hear from the residents and from the constituents and the challenges that they're facing. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I do care about the health and well-being of residents and the economy, not only here in Agassiz, but right across our great province of Manitoba. I'm dedicated and I'm passionate about the people, and I'm passionate about community, and I'll be a strong voice for those of us here in Agassiz. And again, thank you for hosting this event, the Neepawa Chamber, and to be a part of this political debate, presentation, and to my candidates as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. We'll get right into some questions now. So these are questions that have been selected by the Chamber. Neepawa continues to have a growing demand for daycare spaces and workers. What steps will you take to ensure that post-secondary education and apprenticeship programs are aligned with the needs of employers in daycares and other job markets? Mark, we'll get you to start with this question, Michelle, and then Jody.
Okay, so the Keystone Party is designed in a way that we are there to listen to the individuals within a community and to cut the red tape and just allow for innovation from the bottom up. So as far as something like daycare, we are looking towards having conversations about the accreditation processes, the government agencies, reducing the red tape and speeding up the process, but at the same time we want to work with individuals within the community to encourage home daycares, make it easier to open up more slots and more openings for daycares, while at the same time maintaining the same level of standards and safety that are expected when your children are in the hands of others. So we think that a community and the individuals within the community are the best ones to decide how and they should work together with that. And the government officials should be there to back them up and facilitate that. So we are all about parental choice and working with the municipalities and developing strategies to open up more spots for daycare so that we can just make sure that everybody has their needs met.
Great, thank you. Michelle?
Awesome. The Manitoba Liberal Party, and myself included, fully support our early childhood educators as an essential profession. We saw this during the pandemic, that when our childcare centers closed down, everything closed down, because we need our early childhood educators, and they are professionals. These are individuals that are educated and trained in early childhood education. These are not babysitters, and they need to be respected and treated like an essential profession. And that includes wages, training, and opportunities to work in their communities. That's why we're looking at working with the individual centers, but also the post-secondaries, to not only open up spots, because that makes really great headlines, but to make sure that we have the people wanting to fill those spots. We can open all the daycare spots, we can open all the training spots we want, but unless we actually start working with the people in that profession to encourage others to join it by having fair wages, benefits, and opportunities, along with the respect and the dignity that these people that choose to care for our children deserve. We need to do that. Right now in Brandon, ACC is doing, and we're doing it here with nursing, but ACC has rotating early childhood education spots available for education. And the Manitoba Liberal Party is fully willing and eager to work with them and other post-secondary institutions to get more qualified trained professional in community, because when we train people in community, they stay in community. So we want to make sure that not only are there local-based, like Mark said, the local-based centers, but they are trained, educated, and properly compensated the way that they deserve to be.
Go ahead, Jody.
Okay, so this isn't new. We know that people haven't been able to access childcare, and it's been a top priority for the PC Party of Manitoba. That's why here in Agassiz, just recently, in the last few months, there was a selection for the 70 new childcare places in McGregor. And Plumas was also selected for 104 new spaces in childcare. Access to quality, affordable childcare is essential, and for Manitobans, and it's important for the workforce to get that support, and so that their families can go to work and play an active role in their community. Under the PC government, child care will be $10 a day for every family. And in addition to affordable child care, the PC Party of Manitoba has brought in a reimbursement of up to $5,000 per school year, which is available to help cover the tuition related to the costs of taking the ECE program. the PC Party of Manitoba also continues to prioritize families and in the province and deliver meaningful results. And yeah, I look forward to being part of those decisions and at the table when those discussions are happening.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. Question number 2. Michelle, you'll start, Jody, and then Mark. How will you work towards improving international credential recognition to meet employer needs and ensure that foreign trade individuals have access to job opportunities that match their qualifications? Michelle.
Awesome. So this starts with a collaboration between the province and the federal government to ensure that our immigration policies reflect current industry needs. And that includes working with the industries in our municipalities. This idea that centralized government knows what's right for all of us is false, right? We are in rural Manitoba, and when we have people making decisions in the city or even Ottawa that impact us and our businesses, we need to ensure that our voice is heard at that table and people understand what we need here. So we're not only bringing in new people, because we know, working with the chamber, we've been hearing this for a long time, how it's really hard to find workers. We need new immigration, but it needs to be properly fit with the local industry needs. We need to ensure that. We need to make sure that when we are bringing in, for example, nurses or doctors, that they do meet our quality of care standards, but we do, in Mark's words, reduce the red tape so that they can get those qualifications. So in community training, where we can have people working with local experts in order to bring their levels up to where they need, or to make sure that they are working within the current industry standards, is essential. And that would be based on every single industry, not just medical care. And we also need to make sure that we are properly supporting our post-secondary education centers so that when people do need upgrading, when they need reskilling, or they need to find those critical courses that we require here that they don't have when they move here, that they can find the spots, they can get the training, and they can afford to pay for it. Bringing doctors and nurses over here only to work in retail because they can't afford to go back to school, that's a failure of our system. And we need to rectify that, and we need to rectify it quickly.
Thanks, Michelle. Jody.
Okay. So yes, labor shortages are certainly a challenge, and improving international credential recognition is a priority. I've heard not only at the doors, but also with business owners and professionals right across the board. Our provincial PC team has initiated a review of the provincial nominee program, which has a number of recommendations on how to improve and streamline some of these credentials and getting that recognition acknowledged a lot sooner so that these individuals can be put onto the front line or placed in their career path. We do need more of this. Unfortunately, much of it does rely on the federal counterparts as they control the much broader immigration system. We've continued to shift and change some of the barriers that impede, and we're working towards that. Just last week, the PC team announced investments in skills training, recruitment that includes the Manitoba Careers for Internationally Educated Professionals and Certification Program. I will remain committed to this as we close the labor gap, and attract more businesses and workers to our province. It's important that these people get recognized for the professional careers that they come here with. So I would continue to work for creating a better path in that.
Thanks, Jody. Go ahead, Mark.
So this is an area where you've got multiple levels of government to deal with, and so the basics, when you're bringing people in, you definitely, from outside the country or even outside the province, we want to look at, as was said, we want to look at what the needs are for each individual community. So Agassiz is spread across a very large area. There's lots of small communities, large communities. with different needs. And so we can focus on those individual needs to bring people in to fit those needs. We can cut that red tape, we can streamline the processes to get the testing and the accreditation done so that people who have skills coming in with skills that they've developed in their home countries or in the provinces they come from, they can bring those skills in. We can find out where they are. We can give them the education to bring them up to standard. We can get them into the jobs as quickly as possible, and this has to be done in a process that just allows us to focus on the needs of each community. So Nipawin obviously has their needs with the hog plant and the hospitals. We have, I've met and spoken with people across the province who have come here. They've come here and they had skilled labor jobs back home, but they are kept out of the skilled labor jobs here due to many different reasons, and some of them just because of the red tape that they can't get through, whether it be financially or finding the training or just having enough slots to get them in. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that we just need to streamline that process.
Good. All right, thank you, everyone. So we'll move on to a couple of media questions. Banner, I was going to say, Ken, did you want to raise your question?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. So, can you outline your views on Manitoba government's support for funding water, sewer, and road construction in rural areas? And we'll start with Jody, then Mark, and then Michelle. Jody.
Okay, funding for water, sewer, and construction was neglected for years under the NDP government. Necessary infrastructure was underspent by over $1 billion and deferred necessary upgrades and maintenance for really no good reason at all. So we are now here to clean up the mess, I guess, so to speak. And that's why for the first time in history, we've outlined a 5-year plan, investing in a historic amount to rebuilding roads and infrastructure, which the transportation industry has been advocating for a number of years, and we are now delivering on that. And just this weekend, I had somebody come up to me and we were discussing the roads, and he said that he's never seen so much road construction being done as he has in this year. So that's a good sign. We've got a lot more industry using bigger trucks for transportation, so this is an integral part of growing our economy. One other thing that the provincial government, the PC party has done and implemented is the municipal operating basket funding, which increased by 28%. That is providing an additional $47 million in the 2023 municipal fiscal year. This allows municipalities to have more money to spend where they see fit on infrastructure projects or matters that make sense to them, and this includes water and wastewater projects. Another initiative that was put forward by the PC Party of Manitoba was that we doubled the Building Sustainable Community Funds, which allows for infrastructure projects, specifically, I guess not specifically, but they could incorporate or be part of water management programs or builds.
Great. Mark.
So the Keystone Party is very concerned about the health and welfare of the families and communities within the Agassiz riding. So to that end, we would be working with municipalities in an attempt to find the best way to resolve any water issues. There's unfortunately communities within our riding that do not even have clean water. And so we would put an emphasis on working towards resolving those issues, and not only that, but putting an emphasis on developing processes within the communities that would allow them to be set up for future advancements. We want communities to grow, we want townships to grow, and so they need to be ready to expand into the future. And so, yeah, our basic party principles are let's make Manitobans successful, and the best way to do that is to speak with them, to listen to what they're saying, and to develop processes that can move forward into a future of prosperity. So.
Great, thanks. Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm going to agree with Jody on one thing. Under the NDP, our roads and our infrastructure were badly neglected. I'm originally from northern Manitoba. I'm almost 50 years old. I have never seen our infrastructure in rural Manitoba worse than it is right now. It has been neglected. But what I do disagree on is that our area, Agassiz and Spruce Woods, have had conservative MLAs for the last 7 years of a majority conservative government. And it's only now that we're seeing the investments in an election year coming into our roads, majority of which are east-west bound, leading into the larger centers. And those roads that are going north-south into our communities, the feeders for our communities for residents, tourism, and small business, have been neglected. And our local MLAs, whose job it is to speak for us in Winnipeg to make sure that we are prioritized, have not been doing that, because if they were, we would have it done already. The fact that we have communities that don't have safe water, or that we have to beg for upgrades to lagoons. My town was on a boil water advisory for months and months and months as we upgraded our water treatment system and our lagoons. This is not acceptable. Our small towns, our rural municipalities do not have the tax base to be funding major infrastructure upgrades, and especially when they have been neglected for decades beforehand. We need to prioritize this, not just for the health and safety of our people, but for the future economic growth of our communities. If we want to bring in more investment, if we want more childcare, education, and healthcare, if we want people in new tax base to move into our communities, we have to make sure that they can not only get there, but that they're safe to live there.
Thanks, Michelle. I'll hand the floor over to Ray Pryor, who has a question from NACTV. Go ahead, Ray.
Great, thank you. What existing policies enacted by your predecessors, whether from the current or from a previous government, do you either support or at least would not choose to jeopardize with future decisions or policy making?
All right, we're going to start with Mark and then go on to Jody and then Michelle with this question. What have people done in the past that you would keep?
Yeah,
It's basically the question. For those in the audience. Go ahead.
I would say one of the things that I would agree strongly with the Conservative Party would be that they have put effort into reducing red tape and streamlining a lot of processes over the past several years. Unfortunately, I believe that it needs to be done better. It needs to continue, and it needs to be done in different areas. And so that is definitely a set of policies that I would strongly agree with, and we would, as a party, we would continue with that and develop that.
Great. Go ahead, Jody.
Okay, I would probably echo some of that, is the fact that the PC government did go in and stick to their word and reduce the red tape as well. I believe that they did go in and reduce the PST. So that was a policy that they put out in 2016 and they stuck to that, so.
Michelle?
I like this. I like being last and I like being in the middle. 'Cause the best part of being a centrist is I get to agree with and disagree with everybody. So some of the great things that I have seen come out, especially in the last little while, that have really benefited our communities is investment into policing, because we know in our rural communities we don't necessarily have access to centralized police forces. My town of Rivers does, but it's like one of the very few in the area. And we know that crime is on the rise, and we need to address that. So I absolutely love the idea of funding for police and community-based policing. I also really like the idea, or it's not so much a policy that was enacted, but a policy that wasn't enacted when Heather Stephenson took over as premier and kiboshed Pallister's idea of centralizing our school boards and taking away our local school trustees. Because here in rural Manitoba, the idea of having centralized decisions, even more so than they already are, would be devastating to our local communities and to our children. And I think those are really great things that were both done and weren't done on behalf of the Progressive Conservatives.
Great. All right. That was an interesting question. Thank you very much, Ray.
But no prep too. Either.
That was a little prep.
The other ones we got, I
Yeah.
she threw that out.
Good stuff. These are some questions that we received prior to from members of the community. So this one is, there is not enough doctors in Neepawa to cover the local need. And when a doctor goes on leave, other doctors are supposed to fill the need on a rotational basis, but that is not happening. Hospital waiting room is full of people who already have a doctor in Neepawa but can't get an appointment. There is no sense in patting yourselves on the back for a new hospital when there are not enough medical personnel to staff it. Candidates, if your party is elected, how is this problem going to be addressed both in the short term and the long term? We'll start off with you, Jody, and then Mark and Michelle.
Okay, this concern has been brought forward, and again, this goes back to the labor shortages that are on top of the mind, probably right across the country. The PC Party brought in the Human Resource Action Plan, and it is the largest single investment to our public health care system in the history of our province. It's put a $400 million investment to address the shortages in healthcare. And it's based on 3 pillars: retain, train, and recruit. We're strengthening health care with a focus on long-term solutions. And the retain pillar focuses on those who are currently working in the healthcare system. And some of those supports are weekend premiums to healthcare professionals, additional compensation for nurses who work in those full-time positions, and licensing reimbursement, which I've heard from some of the frontline workers that is an important attribute to that, or support. The training pillar provides training for healthcare staff at all levels. The undergraduate nurse employee program expansion includes returning nurses and bringing them back from retirement. An increased intake for doctoral educational programs, and an increase to the number of publicly funded psychiatric positions has also been put forward. The recruit pillar focuses on those that are currently qualified to practice and wish to practice by reducing barriers. As well, there's financial incentives payable to referring nurse employees. And just actually, the PC Party of Manitoba announced today $10 million annually for rural health care. So that will be brought forward as an annual payment for doctor recruitment to the area, to rural Manitoba. And that will help bring doctors here and facilitate and work in the healthcare facility here.
Thank you, Jody. Mark.
So, with doctors and nurses, there's definitely an incentive problem with keeping doctors and nurses in the rural communities. A lot of doctors especially, they want to practice their specialties. Their specialties are going to be practiced in hospitals in major centers. So we have to come up with strategies that would convince and advocate for doctors to look at the general practitioner practice as more worthwhile, a community that would allow for them to bring their families and join in with community and give them something that they're looking for here, rather than heading off to Vancouver or Ottawa or wherever the big center is that they can practice a special surgical practice that is of interest to them. So the Keystone Party would work with health authorities, we would work with doctors, and we would also work with nurses. And one of the big things that I hear around the province is that nurses are not asked how things are going within their hospitals. So their doctors are being asked, the heads of the hospitals are being asked, but the nurses are being left behind, or their concerns aren't being addressed. And so these are things that the Keystone stands for. It stands for the individual. We stand for the people working and making things happen. And so our goal would be to bring everybody into the conversation and just find a way to make hospitals a place that retains workers, retains nurses, retains doctors, and can provide the access to the patients that is needed.
Well done. Okay. Thanks, Mark. Go on, Michelle.
Okay, so healthcare in 3 minutes, got it. All right, so this is the big concern for me, is that here we have in the entire, I'm going to say, Brandon area, because we have had our rural ERs closed, not just in Carberry, but all around the southern part of the province in Spruce Woods. Right now, if you are within this area, where 100,000 people are served, you only have access to 3 24-hour, 7-day-a-week ERs. Burton, Neepawa, and Brandon, for 100,000 people. This is a concern for Neepawa because, as you said, you're getting a new hospital, but your ER is one of only 3 servicing 100,000 people. If we don't focus on immediate solutions, your ER is going to be overwhelmed, which causes, like Mark said, we want to create places that people want to work. It's very difficult to work in a place where you're overworked, under-resourced, and stressed by not being able to serve the patients that you went into healthcare for. Nobody goes into healthcare because they don't want to help people. And when we're putting that on our medical staff and our technicians and our EMS, that's what they're getting when they go to work. The Manitoba Liberal Party's health platform was actually put together in collaboration and consultation with the Passwiak Cree Nation's wraparound holistic care, where everyone can get the care they need in one location. Because you know what? We can't always just run into the city for lab work because our lab is closed. And some of our communities don't even have that option. We need immediate, urgent care centers to relieve the stress of our ERs. We need community-based training, like the new rotating nursing location that Neepawa's getting. Because when we train people in community, they stay in community. We're also working with and supported by the City of Brandon and Brandon University to bring a medical school to Brandon with in-community training for healthcare professionals. We don't need to, municipalities and people in municipalities are being asked to fundraise to help pay and recruit medical staff. This is not the job of your municipal council, this is the job of your province. And we are being asked to donate to pay salaries and recruitment bonuses to bring people to our communities. That is not our job. We need a provincial government that's focused on rural Manitoba so that they can do their job, so we can focus on our own. And in order to do that, yes, we need to work together, but we also need to work from the ground up and figure out why people are leaving. When you have a mass exodus of staff, that is not a money problem. That's not a budget problem. That's a leadership problem. And the only way you're going to find out is by talking to those people and saying, what do you need and how can we help?
Thanks, Michelle. All right, moving right along. Another question, this one's from Christine. An individual candidate can't make promises for their party. However, is there anything in your party's platform to address the level of cellular service in rural Manitoba? Mark, we'll start with you, then Jody, and then Michelle.
So, cell service is a hard one in Manitoba because it is obviously not very good in large stretches of our area. And it's also private companies. So we don't want to be a government that dictates to companies how they function and how they operate, but we also want to incentivize to do the best for their customers. So in any way that we can open up competition amongst the cell companies, Canada has some of the largest cell bills in the world. The apparent collaboration between some of these top cell companies seems to be part of the issue. So the government's job is there to protect the individuals, and so there are some areas I think in which the government can step in and discuss with the cell companies ways that we can, whether it be just open up cell service, whether it be to reduce cell prices, whether it be to bring in more companies to provide competition. I think it's a tough one because as a government we don't want to be out there telling private companies how to function, but we also want to be able to advocate for the residents of our communities to be provided better services.
Jody?
And like just mentioned, cell service is an issue right across everywhere. We've all had the issue where we drop calls, and it's increasingly we've seen that. And we know how important it is to ensure that Manitobans have access to that critical service no matter where they live. The PC Party has partnered with Xplornet to expand on internet service, and they have provided to 30 First Nation communities, as well as over 200 rural communities, to expand on that cell service. And the PC team will continue to broaden this service and work to see that we can all get reliable cell service across the province.
Okay, Michelle?
Reliable cell and internet service isn't just a matter of convenience for rural Manitobans, it's a matter of economic development and safety. We need to make sure that our residents are safe, that they can access help when they need to, but we also need to make sure that our local businesses have the technology and bandwidth that they need to run a competitively global business. Right? That's the thing about the internet. It's opened us up to a whole new world, and we can compete in it if we have that infrastructure. And while cell and internet service across the country is a federal issue, it is our job of our local representatives to make sure we are working with those counterparts, to make sure that they are understanding how our communities need this, and they are representing us when they go back to Ottawa and say, what about rural Manitoba? What about my riding? Larry McGuire, Dan Mazer, that's their job to do that at a federal level. It is our job at the provincial level of our MLAs to work with them to ensure that's getting done for our municipalities and for our chambers. If we want to compete, if we want to attract people leaving the cities across the country that can now work remotely, to our communities, saying, you know what, we have lower taxes. Look at our community. Come live here and work there. We have to make sure that they can do that. And in order to do that, we need that cell and we need that internet service, and we need it to be consistent. And again, as we are going back to healthcare, you knew I would, as we're going back to healthcare, if we're asking people to drive an hour to the closest emergency room, we need to make sure that they can at least get a cell call through. I live 25 minutes outside of Brandon, and there are 3 dead zones between my house and my work. That's unacceptable, and we need to change that, and we need to just stop talking about it and actually start doing it.
Thank you. All right. Housing is a critical issue for Manitoba and the Neequa area. With the continuing growth of the community, how can we attract a workforce to fill the demands of a new hospital, larger schools, continuing growth and needs of a processing plant if there's nowhere for workers and their families to live? We have families living in a bedroom, 1 room, not a suite, and in a basement with other families doing the same because of the lack of safe, affordable rental accommodations in the area. What are the short and long-term solutions that your party has to solving the housing crisis in Manitoba? We'll start with Jody, and then Michelle, and then Mark.
The Progressive Conservative government came out with a 1-year housing plan, action plan, where we committed to repair and to provide repair and renovation of existing housing stock, new housing supply, rent supplements, and of course operating subsidies for community housing units. The cost of supplies and construction material have increased, and this has required Manitoba to revisit their priorities. We work closely with CMHC to provide long-term housing solutions, and we've worked to reduce the red tape to attract contractors. There's new developments being constructed in many communities. However, it does take time and commitment. I would remain focused on working to get affordable and adequate housing, and the PC party has announced that we will remove the first-time home buyers land tax for transfer tax, and this will help young Manitobans purchase that new home and relocate, which would again open up other housing for other families and renters or homeowners.
Thanks, Jody. Michelle?
And I think when it comes to a specific question like that, when you're talking about bringing in new workers to a small community to help offset the labor needs of your local market, this is where housing and industry need to work hand in hand. This is where if you are bringing in new people for specific jobs, we need to be going back to industry saying, how are you going to help house them? How are you going to contribute to this housing crisis in your community? If you want to expand, we need to see a plan for that, right? For far too long, industry, and I'm a business person, I get it, but we have to be accountable to the community. We have to have social responsibility, and we cannot just work in our own best interest and bring in tons of people with no place to live. The idea that we have whole families living in 1 bedroom in order to make ends meet or in order to, there's nowhere else to go, that's unacceptable for us as a community, and we need to address that. This is a partnership between the provincial and the municipal government to have long-term housing plans. And I'd love to hear that the PCs are going to be investing in some of these upgrades for existing houses, but we need to also go further. We cannot rely on industry alone to build new affordable housing, because as a business person, I'm here to tell you, there's no money in building affordable housing. That's why the government must step in and help offset the costs of new builds or retrofitting existing builds so that we can ensure not just young families starting out, but our new employees and our seniors can be at home in our community and keep it going for generations longer. This is not a matter of, something that we do off the side of our desk. It must be a priority, and it affects rural Manitoba just as much as the urban centers. We just don't hear about it as often.
Thanks, Michelle. Mark?
So one of the biggest expenses that contractors deal with are the permitting and bureaucracy that they have to get through in order to even start a project and continue a project. So This is again an area where the Keystone Party would be looking to cut a lot of red tape, to streamline permits, rezoning, all these different things that allow the contractors to get started on projects, to get their projects moving so that they're not sitting with downtime waiting on inspections and different things to happen so that they can continue. The workers, in a lot of cases, the workers are there, they're waiting to get the job done, but they can't move on. So, yeah, we would be looking to cut that red tape, streamline the process. We would like to look into where there's interagency issues, overlap between municipal and provincial government, and you're having to fight your way through 2 different levels of government to get the same thing done. And just cultivate that dialogue between contractors and the province. Yeah, this is another area where we would like to see that that dialogue to happen within the municipalities, so that we can set things up so that we don't have to keep coming back to the same process. We can just move forward, and in the future, these things are already streamlined. So yeah, that's it.
Good. Thanks a lot, Mark. Just got a couple of questions left. If there are questions from the audience, please feel free to send them back to Jennifer, and we will get to those questions as well. So here's the next one. Michelle, then Jody, and then Mark. Manitoba continues to have the highest rates of child poverty in Canada, with 1 in 5 children living in poverty in this province, an issue that has been going on for decades. Now, with the cost of living continuing to rise and food insecurity is at an all-time high, it's a 42% increase over 2022 and an 80% increase over 2021 in the Neequa area. What tangible solutions does your party have in addressing poverty, and specifically child poverty, for Manitobans? Michelle.
I love this question. One of the reasons I decided to run with the Manitoba Liberals, even understanding the confusion people have between the provincial party and the federal party, is because of their long-term plan commitment to reducing poverty in this province. And this isn't just a promise of throwing money at something. These are real long-term solutions that get to the core base of poverty, homelessness, addiction, mental health, and crime. They all come down to poverty. And if we're going to reduce poverty, we got to look at what is stopping people from getting to a life that they can afford to live, to get to that next level. And that starts, of course, with education. And we need to make sure that our children, especially children living in poverty, because I was one. I grew up in northern Manitoba, and I remember what it was like to go to school hungry and watch the other kids have food when I didn't. I was lucky. I was a lot luckier than a lot of them to be here today. We need to ensure that we have proper nutrition programs in schools, because the children, no matter what is going on at home, deserve to be able to focus on their education. This is not a long-term solution. No one is going to write a check and get rid of poverty. If they say they are, they're lying. It cannot be done in a quick solution. We need long-term investments in things like nutrition programs, equity in education, making sure that our rural schools are properly funded and supported so that the next generation of students can break the cycle of poverty. We need to address housing and house insecurity, because you know this, or many of you might. If you're unsure of how you're going to pay your bills, what you're going to eat, or where you're going to sleep, you can't focus on work. You can't focus on school. And those key issues need to be addressed, and we've already talked about some of those ideas from the Manitoba Liberal Party tonight. We need to ensure that the people in our communities are getting by, and not just getting by, but have the opportunity to excel regardless of where they live. For people with disabilities and our aging population, the Manitoba Liberals want to bring in a basic income so that people can actually afford to live and stay in their communities. We want to bring in nutrition programs. We want to support housing. But more importantly, we want to address the societal stigma of what being poor means. This idea that people are poor because they don't work hard, I'm here to tell you, 23 years ago, I was a homeless drug addict. It wasn't because I didn't work hard. We need to address those issues, whether it's intergenerational trauma, whatever is going on, mental illness, addiction. If we don't start treating the disease, we're going to see a continuation of the symptoms, and that's what continued child poverty will bring us if we don't start dealing with it today.
Thanks, Michelle. Jody.
Well, I think, Michelle, you kind of touched on it there. It's multifactorial poverty, and it leads into many other things like education, so on and so forth. And supporting children and youth to meet their full potential, it represents an opportunity to break the cycle of poverty for generations of Manitoba families. Although Manitoba has seen significant improvements in its low income rate for children, there are still far too many children and youth living in poverty. The PC team has a poverty reduction strategy which addresses and includes advice to address the many challenges of those Manitobans that are living in poverty. The plan focuses on healthy communities, strong families, and keeping children in family networks and in their home communities. And we recognize the importance of a system that is accessible to learning and child care services. It's an integral part of the solution for reducing poverty. The PC Party has been working on making life affordable for all families, such as lowering income taxes over the next number of years, and this will put more money in the pockets to our hardworking people and putting a little bit of less stress on some families. So.
Thanks, Jody. Mark.
Well, I think when we're addressing child poverty, we have to ask ourselves why are children living in poverty? And the reason they're living in poverty is because their mothers and fathers can't make ends meet. And part of that is inflation. The rising cost of everything is making it hard for people to make ends meet. And the Keystone Party believes that the family is the basic unit of society. So we need to strengthen families. We need to strengthen the family unit. We need to give mothers and fathers the ability to raise their children and to give their children what they need. So there needs to be looking at the minimum tax brackets. We need to find a way to reduce the strain on those low-income families that aren't able to make ends meet, and we need to do our best in order to help them out. We need to find ways that the community can step up and help them out, and not just form new committees and new associations that are going to funnel money into a new source of just putting money into a problem that is continuing to exist and continuing to get worse. I think if we can get the individuals and the families in a situation where they can be making ends meet themselves, then they don't have to rely on the government. So we need to do what we can to back them up and to strengthen their ability to make an income and to be able to make ends meet on their own.
Great. All right. What are your plans to support infrastructure expansion in rural areas to promote economic development and generate employment opportunities for local communities? We'll start off with Michelle, and then Mark, and then Jody.
My background is in business. I'm an entrepreneur. I've built multiple businesses in rural Manitoba, both in Rivers, in Brandon, and remotely. I've worked internationally, and this idea always comes back to our local chambers when I was president of our local chamber, and I had this conversation with Dougal Lamont of the Manitoba Liberals just 2 days ago. If we look at our rural towns, our small towns as individuals, almost like we would as if they were their own individual business, and created a marketing plan for them that was unique and specific. Agassiz is a very large riding. What Neepawa needs is not necessarily what Gladstone needs, or Treeherne. We need to look at those individual communities and work closely with the municipalities to figure out what industry, of course, business and big industry is always welcome. I shouldn't say that, they're not always welcome. Don't quote me on that, do not print that. Don't print that. Business and industry, they sound really great. But the backbone of our small towns and our rural communities is agriculture and our small businesses that support the residents and the workers. If we're going to grow our communities and attract those industries, we have to support the residents. We have to make sure our infrastructure is in place and that we can support those families, because growing our tax base is what's going to attract the bigger industry and help us grow. In order to do that, it's not a matter of build it, actually maybe it will, build it and they will come. I like that, I'm going to steal that. It's probably copyrighted. It really is about what can we offer? Do our communities have education, childcare, senior care, and health care? Because who is going to move here if we don't have those? Do we have the natural resources to support a large industry? The Manitoba Liberal Party is all about economic development, and that includes using our natural resources as long as it's done safely for both the environment and the people. We're not against that. I love economic development, because you know what? The more money people make, the more choice they have, and the more opportunity they have to give back to their community, volunteer, and all of those other things that we love and that make rural Manitoba great. If we continue to wait for some big industry to come in and it's like waiting for a unicorn, it may happen, but for the vast majority of us, it probably won't unless we build it so that they will come. And there I did it, I used that.
Thanks, Michelle. Mark.
So the Keystone Party believes that within our communities, there are many individuals with brilliant ideas, brilliant skills, and abilities to bring business, to develop business, and to build business. So often they are held back, whether it be by constraints put on them by the regulations or the requirements to get into a business. And so the Keystone Party's plan would be to advocate to remove those barriers and to allow the individuals within our communities to build our communities into economic powerhouses. And if that includes industry moving in, because now it's an area that is has all kinds of incentives for them to move in, then that is a bonus. But we want to empower the individuals within the community to be the force that brings that about. And I think the biggest way that the government can aid in that is just removing the barriers and giving everybody the opportunity to step up, to bring their ideas to the table, and to be able to move forward with their ideas, bring their skills, and not be held back.
Thanks, Mark. Jody.
So infrastructure in rural Manitoba, and primarily here in Agassiz, we've got, say, Highlight, for example, we've got agriculture, and, you know, part of proper infrastructure is good roads, and we need to continue to work and build those roads, and
Did you want me to reread the question, Jody?
no, that's okay. That's okay. You know, some of the projects or some of the initiatives that the province has put out there is small business can apply to receive a one-time direct deposit payment of $520 per employee, $50 million in new capital for Manitoba First Fund, and I'm sorry. That's probably the longest 3 minutes I've ever had.
It's all good.
That was 3 hours.
That was 3 hours in public. It's long. No worries. No worries. Is there any further questions from the audience? Any questions? I'll throw one at you. So there's been a drastic change in the nonprofit and volunteer sectors in Manitoba since COVID-19. Many volunteers have not returned to be volunteers, and many nonprofits are really struggling. What plans do your party have in the works to support the nonprofit sector and volunteering within Manitoba? And we'll start off with Jody. Sorry. Jody, Michelle, and then Mark.
I'm sorry, can I do?
Yeah, no, I'll read that again. Basically, is there any plans within the party to support nonprofits and volunteering, whether that's providing incentives or plans to have our volunteer sector become stronger in Manitoba again? That's okay. We'll go with Michelle and Mark, and then we'll turn back to you, Jody.
I think one of the things that sets rural Manitoba apart is its volunteer base and its nonprofit, right? Everything we do, everything that makes our community great is run on volunteers. And for those of us who've been around, long enough to maybe get a little color in our hair, it tends to be the same people over and over again, and we're seeing less and less volunteering in our communities from young people. Now, one of the things the Manitoba Liberal Party wants to do is to really push forward and support long-term stable funding for nonprofit organizations so that they can actually afford to operate, and they're not constantly worrying about where they're going to get funding, how they're going to get funded. And taking that stress away from the board of directors for our local nonprofits and our community organizations will allow them to actually focus on the work that they want to do in the community. And by taking those stresses away, we can encourage more people to participate. The other thing that we do know is that new residents to new communities love to get involved in local organizations. So as we increase our infrastructure, as we increase healthcare and our roads and education, and we work on economic development plans to bring new people into our communities, we're going to see our volunteer base grow naturally. But it all comes with stable funding, and that funding comes from an innate respect, appreciation, and acknowledgement of how important our local communities, organizations, and nonprofits are, because without them, our communities cannot survive. And it doesn't matter if it's your local Lions Club, if it's your local food bank. It all relies on volunteers, and we need to properly fund those organizations so that the volunteers can work with the community and not worrying about constantly fundraising just to keep their doors open.
Thanks, Michelle. Mark.
So volunteers, you're going to find volunteers if they feel connected. So this is an area where the Keystone Party structure, being based in the individual, being based in the family structure, being based in community, and developing community spirit. I believe that if we develop strong community spirit within our different areas, then we're going to see an increase in community aid, community involvement. The whole structure of the Keystone Party is to get community involved in what is happening within government, within community, within municipalities. And so I think if we can move forward and bring people into that so that they have their say, they will have a feeling of connection with the community, they will have a connection with those nonprofits, and that will bring them into the conversation, but it'll also bring them out to give aid in whatever form that is, whether it be volunteering to help at events for nonprofits, whether it be donating towards those nonprofits. If you feel connected to a community, you want to see that community thrive. And so that's our goal. That's where we would like to bring our communities.
Thanks, Mark. Jody.
Okay, well, I think we've all been to enough fairs and pancake breakfast. We understand that volunteerism is an integral part to every community and many organizations. Like the candidate said, they're an important part of every community, and fundraising for each of those organizations is integral to the stability of those and bring a sense of community together.
Great. Thank you. Any further questions? Nothing? Okay. So we can start with our closing statements, and we will start in the reverse order that we began in. So that will be Jody, and then Mark, and then Michelle. You'll have 3 minutes again, and then, so once you're ready, go ahead, Jody.
Very good. I want to start by thanking my other candidates, and it's been a pleasure to be here and to share our views and our platforms. I love Agassiz and the people that make it up. I live here, I work here, I raised a family here. I've worked in the community, and like many of you, have faced some very challenging battles. You know, hidden costs are adding up and life is getting more expensive. Our PC team is committed to working towards a society that young people, or where young people can buy homes, hardworking constituents of Agassiz, and can get to keep more of their hard-earned dollars. I will fight for local community funding, ensuring that the places where we are nurtured and empowered. I want to build on our shared spaces, create a network of vibrant, united communities that make our constituency shine. I will work for reliable infrastructure, as this is the lifeline of our communities. I will not allow our communities to stop growing due to inadequate critical infrastructure. Let's build the pathways that connect us and enhance the quality of life for all residents. And of course, healthcare, healing our healthcare system is a top priority. Health is our most beautiful asset we have. My commitment is to champion rural healthcare, education, childcare, and issues that matter to the people, to ensure that we have access to high quality and timely services for all. My mission is to empower Agassiz with compassion, dedication. I'm committed to fostering prosperity, unity, and diversity for a brighter future. I embrace the values of hard work. I envision a thriving, inclusive rural community where adequate opportunities and essential services are the norm and diversity is celebrated. I don't make promises I cannot keep. But based on my core values, I can promise to lead, listen to constituents, educate on topics that matter, advocate on constituent issues, dedicate my time and energy to serving the people of Agassiz.
Thank you, Jody. Mark.
So, in the last 23 years, have things gotten better for Manitobans? We have the highest rates of childhood poverty, the highest crime rates, highest murder rates, some of the lowest reading and writing levels in the country, longest hospital wait times we've ever experienced, and some people are having to decide if they are going to pay their bills or feed themselves. This isn't the Manitoba I want, and this shouldn't be the Manitoba you want either. We have the ability to be one of the richest provinces in Canada. We have agriculture, we have hydro, we have mining, we have tourism. We shouldn't have a cash flow problem. What we do have is red tape and a government problem. We should all be tired of being a handout province when we could be a hand-up province. The Keystone Party provides a different option for those who are tired of spinning their tires and not getting anywhere with their current representatives. We provide opportunity for your voice to be heard in legislature. It doesn't matter your status, your wealth, or your education. You will have a say in what happens in the building that we all own. When the PCs won, we were told life would get better. that they would be moving Manitoba forward. Do you feel like they have moved us forward? The past couple of years in this province, regular people haven't been listened to. We turned to our leaders. We expected our leaders to lead, not to rule. There have been rash decisions made without listening to the public. Decisions that have affected every single person here. Some of you lost your jobs, your businesses, your livelihoods because of those decisions, without explanation or discussion. Some of you were unable to go to weddings, movies, or watch your children play sports. Precious years with your elderly loved ones were gone, unable to tend to them in their golden years. Remember all of this when you go to the polls. The people in that building caused all these things to happen. Their decisions over the last 3 years caused these things. There were decisions made, and there should be consequences to those decisions. The entire world has changed. Maybe it's time for the grassroots to step up and change the government with it. And the Keystone Party is here to represent you.
Thanks, Mark. Michelle.
I wish Richard was here to, unfortunately he couldn't be, to kind of give you his spiel. But I'll do what I can for him because I know him. Richard Davies, your Manitoba Liberal candidate, is someone I actually know personally. I've worked with him in the party office. He works in Winnipeg, but his roots are here. His family is here. They're beef producers. They're ag producers. And even though we come from two different ridings, Rivers and Nipawin, we're still all Westmen. And one of the fundamental things that I think that we need to get past in this election is this idea that Manitoba only has two choices. We constantly, for my entire lifetime, have gone between the NDP and the Conservatives. Back and forth, we vote one out, get in the other, don't like what they're doing, we vote the other one out. And if you listen to the media, you would think that you don't have a choice. You would think it's one or the other. But I'm going to say this, that when you go to the polls, whether you're voting in the advance polls or on election day, you are choosing your local representative. That's it. You're not voting for premier. You're not even voting for the party that's going to form power or government. You're voting for your local representative. And we've gotten too far away from that by focusing on parties, on promises, and on leaders. You will have a choice of 4 people. 2 of them are here tonight, and I've done my best to speak for one of the others. We need local representatives that are going to stand up and speak for themselves and for you, even if it means crossing party lines, even if it means doing something that, doesn't win them any popularity contests. I haven't met a single Manitoba Liberal that has gone through what we've gone through, being associated with Justin Trudeau in rural Manitoba, who is doing it because we want the glory. That's not why we're here. We are here because we want to give Manitobans a different option. I sat in the middle tonight and I made a joke about the fact that I'm a centrist, but I wasn't joking. The Manitoba Liberal Party may not have formed government in the last 70 years, but that does not mean a local Manitoba Liberal representative can't make a difference for your community. And this idea that they're a fringe party or not an option, I need you to put that outside of your head. Because when you vote, you're choosing one person. And all you have to ask yourself is, at the end of the day, when I pick up the phone and I call my local MLA because I'm in trouble, who do you want to be on the other end of that phone? And that's the only question on election day.
Thanks, Michelle. Well, thank you very much, all candidates, for your engagement in the lively discussion tonight at the Nipawin District Chamber of Commerce Candidates Forum this evening. A special thank you to all of you who have joined us today and those who have submitted questions for our candidates this evening. Also, this evening would not be possible without the staff and volunteer efforts of the Nipawin District Chamber of Commerce and the hardworking staff of NACTV who have helped bring the forum to you. I encourage all of you, viewing and attending tonight, that to please vote. If you have questions or comments or concerns, reach out to your candidates. Get on the phone, go online, see what the party has to offer. If you're not clear or if you want to have further discussion, that's what they're there for. Please engage with your candidates, make an informed decision, and encourage others to vote. Your vote does matter, regardless of what you feel. Some people don't feel that it doesn't matter what you're going to vote, but every vote does count. And it's important to make sure that you exercise that right to vote, because some of us haven't had that right for very long. I am going to just say that our provincial election is on Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023. Please, if you have not received your voting cards, contact your election office, wherever you happen to be in the Agassiz, or across the province if you're happening to watch us on NACTV. I want to thank the candidates again and everyone here tonight, and thank you for allowing me to be your moderator again for this evening. All the best in all of your campaigns for the rest of the election, and good luck and good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.